Thank you so much, Andrew, for the useful information and for all your work. And I wanted to call out again gratitude for Curtis and Dr. Ludwig and Andrew, the work you've done to make sure that work session and board meeting videos are now on the website and accessible. And you mentioned listserv continues to be the #1 preference of families. Dr. Ludwig did such a nice job of preparing a budget information session, but sadly, no one from the public attended. And so just reinforcement to when it's a significant district event like input on wellness curriculum, budget information session, budget hearing, glad to hear that listserv is a good way to communicate and glad that you're using it. So thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Just briefly, every time I read something you send out, I want to send you an email saying you're awesome and you're great. And I just think I've overdone it, but I do feel that way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Before you go, Andrew, I'd just like to add, a few of you were on the board in May when I had, in early June when I had my evaluation, and Mr. Fernandez is here. He was in that room. But increasing communication was one of my superintendent goals for this year in May, early June, that I shared with board members, partially because we had gone through a really eventful year around getting ready to open a new school and boundary adjustments, and hearing continually that as much as we thought we had a lot of good communication out often and early, it wasn't often enough and early enough. And so, we were inching towards 10,000 students, and it just comes to that point with, the prevalence of information and people wanting it in a lot of different formats, that we needed to have a full-time position for Director of Communications. So coupled with a real intention on our part to do a number of the things that Andrew mentioned, was also to get someone who could do that really well, who is a gifted writer and communicator, which Mr. Kihlstrom is. And I remember in his interview when he said, I want nothing more than to tell the good stories of what's going on in this district, because I've been doing it as a journalist and I'd love to do it full-time on staff. And he's done that remarkably well, and it's just amazing what he's accomplished, and he hasn't even been on staff for a full year, and already what he's brimming with eagerness to continue to do. Not only that, but I hadn't realized how many calls from media and writings I was kind of working on as superintendent, and that has certainly freed that up, as well as give a consistent message out to media when events happen. And so that's been great. Aligning our systems of communication so parents see the same messages in multiple places, I think increases the confidence that there are many minds working on that message, and it isn't just one adult guessing at a message and putting it out there, but that our principals are connected and our district is connected with our principals, and that increases confidence. So I want to thank Mr. Kihlstrom for all that he's doing, and I know he's going to keep doing great things. One of the other pieces, I don't know if it was mentioned here, but he does get articles into like the Boones Ferry Messenger and advertisements out telling the story of the district. So there are a lot of other avenues besides our own communication tools where we're tapping into other tools that are out there in the community and getting articles placed, as well as helping me coordinate those kind of face-to-face community opportunities, like the joint Rotary lunch that we had. Andrew was very key in helping me get that organized with those invitations and making sure folks were there. So it's not just print media and electronic, but also face-to-face communication is another form that he's been helping a lot with. So well done.
Thank you very much.
And as Andrew is sitting down, Dr. Soyson is coming up to join us. I just want to say on behalf of Dr. Pryor and myself, who get an opportunity to work with our principals daily, the addition of Andrew and his thoughtfulness and energy, and he shows up in the schools and he knows the schools, and our principals just love him and love the work, because it's about increasing effective communication. So just wanted to say thank you. Speaking of communication, Dr. Soyson and I have the opportunity to give a brief update on something. Chelsea, as you mentioned, it's the ECHO. We've mentioned this before, talked about it, but we'd like to talk about ballot measure 98 and give a little update for you, and both of us will be talking about that. If we want to go back to remembering what ballot measure 98 was about, it's actually about high school success and about improving graduation rates. And it was funded back in 2016, and every school district, if you applied for it, you got roughly about $800 per student to help support some work that we're going to talk about here. High school success was actually really designed to improve graduation, to focus on chronic absenteeism, ninth graders on track, career technical education, college level opportunities, and dropout or push out prevention. And we, Dr. Soyson and I, have had an opportunity to, throughout, from last year when we started working together on this, to throughout this school year, had an opportunity to work with our friends in neighboring districts who are in the same positions we are, and it's been a fun time to share stories, to share ideas, strategies. So it's been great for us.
And just to put it in perspective, this is like any other grant where what they're looking for, the state of Oregon is looking for, is taking this opportunity of using this funding to systemically put things in place so that maybe the grant won't stay here forever, but districts will have made moves in that direction. And so we have really worked at making sure that in looking at what our own district does, we are involved with the statewide efforts. We are involved with the 9 other school districts in the Clackamas ESD, and we're parts of other things like the Kaiser Absenteeism Grant. We've chosen to participate in all of these efforts. Our purpose this evening is just to introduce this with the idea that we'll be reporting back to you at least 2 more times with data about what we're finding out and with more specifics about exactly how we are using this and what we are finding.
And the funds are, we're guaranteed through next school year. And the staffing, activity, and resources for these funds are directed to these 3 key areas you see, where it's establishing or expanding career and technical education programs, college-level educational opportunities for all of our students, and then, as I mentioned before, expanding dropout prevention strategies. And as we continue to work with our students and our staff, we know that equity actually in the state of Oregon said, equity is a central focus of this, ballot measure, and it requires us to track and address progress of all students. And so, especially those who have traditionally been underserved or historically marginalized and honestly have not graduated. And so, one of the things that I know that our high school teams in particular, but it's a K-12 conversation, is that we really start early to talk about how do we serve all students, and not, for us, as we've mentioned several times here, it's not just about getting across that finish line and getting a high school diploma, but it's what skills do we have, what do we provide to all students as far as opportunities and access, and then how do we effectively kind of track, and we are in that together, we're doing that work together, but these are the 3 specific things that our resources specifically must fall under.
And for our school district, because our overall graduation rate, maybe relative to the state graduation rate, looks strong, we specifically have to look at underserved students, but also what Dr. Downs was mentioning about not just having students graduate, but looking at developing programs and options in high school that link them to interests beyond high school. So in that regard, it's looking at, talented and gifted students. It's looking at students with specific interests that may not always have been served in school. And for our district, that's especially important. And so that's the focus of the way we are investing the funds and the kinds of things that we're developing.
The first area, just briefly, you can see up here some of the state of Oregon CTE areas, and then some of our current areas for CTE. And we do focus on arts and information communication, and then industrial and engineering systems. And we are, continuing to look to expand our CTE offerings.
And those 6 programs listed there under the state of Oregon's, those are defined by the state as career technical education areas. And so right now, I mean, investing in one of those areas to actually have a full-fledged program, you have to meet requirements to do that. And the 2 that we have are 2 that, as of date, we have student interest in, and we have developed teacher staff for, because they need to be taught by certified CTE teachers who need to have hours in industry or in one of those professions in addition to an education degree. However, what part of our work is also collecting student data about what their interests are. So this is a starting point to look at future programs. But the other piece is you don't just look at these formal programs. Our high schools have also organized their coursework into pathways. So for example, if a student is interested in going into business, we don't have a business and management full-fledged program, but we are making sure that we have the AP statistics courses and the other types of courses that a student would need to go into college with credit in those areas. And so the pathways part is also important. And what we've been cautioned to do, both nationally and by the state, is be judicious in what you actually put your full-fledged CTE program development in. Because, for example, in health and biomedical services, that requires quite an investment in infrastructure to do that. So that's where we're looking at, where do you develop your partnerships? A big part of our work in our school district, we think the biggest thing we need to do better is form the business partnerships and the community partnerships. And that's both in Westland and in Wilsonville. And we know they're there, but getting the partnerships that are more than just occasional meetings, but really full-fledged. Can we do internships? Can we have equipment, is how we're looking at this work.
The second area that I want to talk about is expanding college-level opportunities. And when we talk about that, it is not limited to just a student taking an advanced placement course, but our high schools are excited about kind of exploring who is taking advantage of our AP courses and how do we reach more students and tap students on the shoulder to say, we actually believe in you to try this. And the students, you do? And it's exciting, and they try it, and we've had success with that. We are wanting to continue to increase those opportunities for students to take and try an AP course, to think, is there a local community college, or we're so closely connected with, OIT is very, very close to us. Is there a course that you may be wanting to try over the summer? And so we recently just attended, one example of our kind of focus, we recently just attended with all of our high school principals and a counselor and a few of us that a joint meeting with OIT to just talk with one another about how do we share it with our proximity. What could we do? They were really open to saying, what do you need from us? And we were able to share a little bit about maybe what we needed and what they needed from us as well. And so one of the things right now, we have someone from OIT is going to meet with every high school and going to share what they have for some summer opportunities for students. And so any student, and we're going into some classrooms that you wouldn't traditionally, maybe we're not going into just our AP stats class, as Dr. Soyson mentioned, but we're going into some other classes that we say, you may be really interested in that. They have a health class this summer, which is really unique. And so we've invited OIT to be kind of a good partner. So that was something that we're very excited about, as well as they were too.
In this meeting with OIT, for example, one of the barriers has been that for dual credit, to earn high school credit and college credit, if we have high school teachers teach the course, they need to have a master's degree, not in teaching, but in that subject area or better. We're finding that in our last session with OIT, they are willing to work with that a bit more flexibly. What, of course, they want to do is they don't want to diminish the value of any credit that a student earns. We don't want that either. We don't want the integrity of the program to be lessened. But that's an example of one that we're really enthused about some of the offerings that they have, and it's also nearby. The other thing, though, the other piece with this is some of the things that have been mentioned as priorities in other areas at recent board meetings, counseling and mental health. Having students figure out who am I and what am I interested in, and going beyond sort of the traditional, so what college do you want to go to, how are you going to fill out the forms, is a huge piece of this. So that last point about communication with and involvement of parents and families about opportunities. One example of this is turning these sessions, the college information night, into workshops with families, into having several workshops, into making sure that families are called and have the opportunity to come in and work with their students. Our counselors also, and some of our money is being spent on additional counseling, and that's time to really work with students to start to figure out how they're doing in school and what they're interested in. Again, not just to get the requisite amount of credits, but to look at where they would go next, and then to help make the connections. We have a staff member at one of our high schools who has literally taken the students over to Clackamas Community College, because that's daunting, to actually do that, and she has made that part of her work.
And lastly, just want to focus on this dropout, or sometimes we call it push-out prevention. And when we think about what we can be doing, we know that if you don't wait till their summer, their junior year, to say that a student is maybe not on track to graduate, and more importantly, doesn't quite feel connected. And so we know that as a system, we're talking consistently about this. But our middle and high schools have really, really taken to heart multiple opportunities to learn and know their students, know where they're at, know how they're doing, know what some needs are. And so we are trying to be intentional, and within the Measure 98, trying to provide opportunities. For instance, we're putting together a new summer program for students that are going to be coming from 8th grade to 9th grade. And it's honestly to get them on a winning streak to get into high school. And to say, we believe in you, here's some logistics, here's some skills to build, and here are adults that you will see that are going to wave and smile and meet you, and we're here for you. And it's not about anything other than we're going to believe in this, and we're going to support you, we're going to make it work, we're going to invite you. And so we have coordinated kind of our teams, our administrative and counseling teams, as well as with teachers, to say, we're all doing this, to whatever it takes, we're going to get this done, and we're going to reach out to folks. What we've noticed is that we know how important the 9th grade year is for students. We know that when they are credit whole at the end of their 9th grade year, and for us that means passing every class, we know that they are going to be graduating from high school on time. And so for us, we are just committed to how do we ensure that that happens, and how do they have the best experience that they ever could have in high school. And so these are just a few of the things that we continue to look at. We also hear these great stories of students peer-to-peer reaching out, especially around chronic absenteeism. We've noticed that sometimes there's this good connection where Dr. Ludwig never skipped a class, but let's just say I said, Dr. Ludwig, we sure missed you today, and peer-to-peer say, everything, what do you need, or we want you back in school. We've noticed that has been helpful to connect some students back into our schools. And so that's just one small example, but it's something that's been important for us.
Do you have questions?
Just a comment. I had the pleasure of attending the district CTE revitalization grant kickoff in March. And it was just remarkable the way students and educators and administrators all worked together to showcase their plans in engineering, robotics, media, communications, and even the environment. It was interesting to see how full advantage was taken of integrating across curricula, and just the partnerships that were created within the community and externally. And even the Department of Education was describing itself as a partner. So congratulations on that piece of Measure 98, the CTE piece.
Thank you. That's a nice example of the work that they're doing.
There's also a great community component, and thank you, Dr. Reynolds, for attending that as well. The community component, the just community excitement around we're in this together. And that OIT example I gave earlier, they were talking about, well, we want to connect students to these partnerships, internships, get kids to try something that aren't just your junior or senior kids, but they're kind of some lower grades as well.
Thank you for this report and for your work. Just wanted to echo back a couple of things that interested me, and then I do have one question. Of course, this idea of transitions is something that we all know is important, and I was pleased to see in the report that that was an area of focus, that transition between 8th and 9th grade, and then even just to hear you talk about that awareness toward that transition to college, because we do want them to graduate high school, and we want them to go on for higher education because there is intrinsic worth in that, and how do we set them up for success once they get into college. And I know that's getting a little outside your scope, but it is something you are laying a lot of groundwork for in their high school years. And loved hearing just about the partnerships with OIT and Clackamas Community College, and especially the role of the peer. There's a lot of capacity in our students to help with this work as well. So I was really pleased to hear you tapping into that. And one question I have, you mentioned that there was data collection required as a piece of Measure 98. Did I hear that correctly, with the equity work that is embedded?
Well, we've decided, because the data collection is directing, what we do. We, of course, have to turn in, like you would for any grant, the accountability. But what I meant by that is the next time we report, we will bring data, because we will have some things to show you about absenteeism, about course participation, about, we have baseline right now where we are, but now what we want to do is look at, okay, we have put these things in place. What are we seeing that is different? The state is attempting to collect some data. So they don't have real specific points, but they do want some means of evidence, because that was the purpose of Measure 98, is across the state of Oregon, what can we identify as some high leverage strategies that will improve our graduation rate. But we, as a school district, have decided that we have to have that for each of those points, just to see, what is working.
So it sounds like the data is not necessarily unique to any efforts that are particular to Measure 98, but data that is collected about attendance and graduation rate.
They're looking for graduation rate. They're looking for, and then some of the things that they've associated with it. Attendance is being used now. It's also a key point with ESSA. It's one of the data points along with student achievement that's collected. But we're looking at others. We've already, in looking at even part of our high school study, we've looked at the courses students are taking, the enrollment in dual credit and AP courses. And now we're looking, as Dr. Downs was suggesting, who's taking them. So we've set up all those categories. We just have baseline right now, but that's, our intent is when we next report to you, we'll be showing you, so this is what we're finding, therefore this is what we're going to continue with, and this is what we'll take from this for our school district.
Dr. Soyson, one of my concerns with Measure 98 is that it's temporary. It's this huge influx of funding that just evaporates in 24 months. One of my concerns is, what are we going to do? I mean, what kind of sustainable program are we going to have when when the funding goes away? And so I'm encouraged to hear that you discuss, and Dr. Downs discussed, that you are looking at some systemic improvements to create a sustainable program, even if the funding is dried up or goes away. And so next time you report back to us, I'd be really curious to hear more about what the systemic change looks like and how this would continue on if the $800 a year per student goes away.
Exactly, because that's exactly what we're looking at. And we look at that as our mandate, that we can't just say, well, we had this, so we'll create some positions and do this. Just like when Dr. Downs is mentioning Summer Institute. That's being designed right now. It'll run parallel with the summer school that is either credit recovery or move ahead, courses that we've always had. But we're looking at a set of 3 or 4 study skills. AVID is a program that has had those skills. Students will learn those skills, but we're also then not just going to have the students learn them, we're going to take them back to the 9th grade and say, well, all the 9th grade teachers be working with that. So that'd be a small example that if you start something like that, even when the money goes away, you've identified those pieces. If students have common ways of taking notes, common ways of getting information from texts, for example, and we all practice that, that would be just one immediate example that we were working on today. But that's exactly what we'll do when we come back, because that's our goal, is to identify what are those practices that we'll put in place. Our counselors are doing the same thing with their work. We're also looking to see the things that are high leverage for our families, and we will be collecting information with them. You know, when Andrew talked about collecting information from families in general, we will be doing that specifically for this.
I'm watching the time, so I'm just going to kind of throw out there my thoughts. I want you to know that I have heard parents who have children on 504 plans or IE plans increasingly worried and concerned about the transition from middle school to high school, and just want that to be on your radar, communicating. Maybe their children don't have as much fear, but maybe they do, or maybe both, I don't know. And second, I'm getting your communications, at least on a school level, about paying attention to number of absences, and so in the future, I'd be interested if that's new, if we can tell if that's made a difference or not. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think at this time, as we're moving into working with our budget committee, we'll close.
Recess the board meeting and invite the budget committee members up to join us.